Shalom. You know, this journey of getting back to the first century that the Lord set me on, it's one of these things that just didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like flipping a switch and all of a sudden, you know, here I was, a Protestant Christian, and boom, I'm a Messianic or / Nazarene Jewish believer. It didn't happen that way. It was a process over several years, and during that time, I had to just reevaluate everything that I was raised and taught to believe. I had to question my faith. I had to question my education. I had to question my walk, and I had to question all that I've learned so that I can come to unbiased, true, biblical decisions regarding my faith, my practice, and my walk. So I had to ask myself some pretty hard questions. And I want to share these questions with you, and I would like to challenge you to ponder each and every one of these questions and ask yourself these questions also, and give an honest answer. Don't be afraid. Don't try to hide. Don't try to dismiss it away, but don't give a pat answer. Honestly, ask yourself these questions and soul search. Do a spiritual inventory. And ask God to lead and guide and direct you to the correct answers and to the correct decisions for you regarding these very questions. I had to ask myself, am I practicing my faith because this is the way it's always been done? And, well, because my pastor told me it was so. I also had to ask, is the faith that I practice today the same or close to the one that the followers of Yeshua, Jesus, after his death, burial, resurrection, and ascension? Did what I believe in practice line up with that? Did it line up with the first century believers? Can I trace my beliefs, doctrines, and definitions and practices to the first century after Yeshua's death, burial, resurrection, and ascension? Down deep, do I know and want to know and keep the original faith of the first century apostles? If so, what is that? Does it still exist today? And if so, can I be a part of it? Has Satan successfully hidden the true way of faith as it was originally meant to be from the majority of the people for over 2,000 years? How much of what I believe in practice is custom or culture or tradition or the doctrines of men? And how much of it is truly Scripture? How old are the particular doctrines that I know and follow? When and where did they originate? Where did they come from? And where do my religious holidays and observances, my traditions and customs and practice come from? Why do we do what we do in that regard? Do they have a true foundation and origin in Scripture? Am I looking at my faith the way it was originally meant to be looked at? Or do I interpret my faith through the biased cultural lens? If I found out that something I believed or practiced was wrong, now see, this is a toughie. Let me just rewind and repeat that. If I found out that something I believed and practiced was wrong, nobody wants to be wrong. But what if something you found out that you believed all your life was wrong? Would I have the guts to change it no matter what anyone else said? No matter what my pastor said, my parents said, my family and friends said, my wife, my spouse, whatever? Or would I go with the crowd and not rock the boat and just fade once again back into the background? So these are the questions that I had to ask myself, and I had to be brutally honest. And I discovered that a lot of what I believed in practice was based on the American Western culture and tradition, specifically that of the Southern United States, in which my family was brought up and raised in, and hence I was brought up and raised in. And I'm not knocking it, and I'm not really saying that there's necessarily anything wrong with it, but a lot of our cultural bias and understanding of the Scriptures has been elevated to the status of Scripture itself. That this is right and this is wrong, and really it has no basis in Scripture per se, but it has all of its roots in just the cultural upbringing of a particular people or a particular time frame. So in my heart, I wanted to get back to the first century. I wanted to know what the first century believers believed, how they practiced, how they lived, and I wanted to live as close to that as possible here in the 21st century and apply those first century beliefs and doctrines and principles in an acceptable 21st century way here in this Western world that I lived in. So I challenge you, ask yourself these hard questions, ponder these questions in your heart and mind, and say, God, give me these answers that I'm seeking. Show me what the truth is, because I want you and I want the truth more than anything and no matter what, regardless of what anybody says or thinks. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Shalom.